Hi John, thanks for joining me on Tyneside Life. I understand you're one of the organisers here. Can you, for Newcastle fans watching this, because there's going to be a lot of anger, I think, and they might think that they've been betrayed in some way. What is your group hoping to achieve ultimately?
Well, the first thing I want to say is that my name's John Hurd. I'm from the Felon, and I've supported Newcastle since my dad gave us a scrapbook about the first cup in 1969, and I'm a Newcastle fan. I am not a Sunderland fan, despite what people say on social media. But I also think it's a bit of a joke, as if Sunderland fans are the only ones that care about human rights. No, Newcastle fans care about human rights as well. Why are we here? Basically, we want to start a dialogue. We've had a campaign for a year. We've had meetings. We've launched a fanzine called Hailstones in the Desert. And the reason why it's called Hailstones in the Desert is because when we started, the usual sort of insults came about. They said, oh, look at the woke people, snowflakes, as if like supporting human rights makes you a snowflake. Well, we've been contacted by Saudi activists, and what the main guy said to us, he was in prison for a long time, he's escaped, he's in Europe, not say his name for security reasons. He's a big Alan Shearer fan, loves Newcastle, and he said to us, he said to be an activist in Saudi Arabia, fight for LGBT plus Q rights, to fight for women's rights, to fight against the execution of young people, you have to be harder than hard. And yet, when they're not snowflakes, they're actually like hailstones. So that's why it's dedicated to them, the fanzine. So like to turn it on its head and say to people, we've got a lot in common with the people who are suffering in Saudi Arabia because of the 80% owners of the club. And the point is, we're not here today to protest against Newcastle fans. We are Newcastle fans. We love the club. We love the team. We're here to start a dialogue and say, is there any future in our club being owned by such a dictatorship? It's one of the worst on the planet. And I think the other side of it, the other level is that it's not just about Newcastle. Sometimes we can be in a bit of a bubble here as well, but this is about the future of football as well, and it's hard sometimes to look beyond this match tonight, against Chelsea. But let's look at what the future could hold. There's two clubs in the Premier League which are owned by two clubs owned by dictatorships. Okay, the trend is going to be not to allow dictatorships or states to own clubs. That's going to be the trend. The governments can change. Football governance can change, but also things can change in Saudi Arabia as well.
Well, I think through all of that, John, just in a sentence, what are you trying to achieve today?
Well, what we're trying to achieve is to put a marker down to say that there are Newcastle fans who care that we are owned by a dictatorship, and we want to do something about it. And basically, we want to talk to fans. The majority of fans, I've got complete faith in Newcastle fans. The majority care about these issues, and I think we should.
I think most Newcastle fans do. But what do you mean? What do you mean? Do something about it?
That we actually, for example, I'll give a concrete example. When the takeover happened, Alan Shearer correctly said there are issues. Now that's a euphemism. The issues are torture, oppression, all the terrible things that the Saudis do. Let's call it by its name. Some of the politicians who, in my opinion, have been really disappointing. Because I know there's Labour MPs here who are season ticket holders, and they haven't said one thing about this. They should be serious. So it's no wonder that fans think, well, okay, if the politicians aren't serious.
I don't think anybody's denying that these things go on, and we all feel strongly about it. If you're just a liberal, decent human being.
Exactly. Yeah.
But do you think annexing a country like Saudi Arabia helps?
What do you mean by that? I don't understand what you mean.
Annexing them into the margins of society, in ridiculing how they live. I mean, they've got a deeply entrenched religious ideology that we know virtually nothing about. That goes on in their own country. They're not a part of the Human Rights Convention. They have Sharia law, and I'm not saying I agree with any of that. I find most of it appalling. But the club aren't trying to entrench their beliefs on us. And how they live their lives over there is a matter for them. I mean, these deeply held religious ideologies can take hundreds of years to overturn. Back in the 80s and 90s, when I was in the military, you were chucked out of the military if you're gay. This is in our lifetime. These things take decades and decades, and it's probably going to take hundreds of years for Middle Eastern countries to change.
Well, we respect, disagree with that, because the people who run Saudi Arabia, it's a royal family. They're a dictatorship. Dictators, not just one. There's a few, but the lead one is Mohammed bin Salman.
In the context of how we see the world, yes.
Sorry, wait a minute. But they're actually slaughtering. In the last few years, 1,000 people. Why are they executing people? They're not executing. It's not criminals in the main.
Because that's their Sharia law.
One moment. Some of these guys. Look at the. Can you show?
I know.
Can you show the face of this guy? Okay, I'll say his name. Jawad Al-Khalili's. Okay, Saudis asked me us to say the name. This guy is a young guy arrested for demonstrating when he was a young kid, and now he's 18. They've re-arrested him. They put him on death row. That's what it's about. This idea, their Sharia law. No. The dictatorship uses religion to keep the people down. There are a lot of Saudis who don't agree with this system. We shouldn't just accept it. Yeah. We shouldn't accept it. So, I just want to finish the point what you said about what I was saying about engagement. After 1 year of being the Saudis owning this club, have they changed? Have they moderated? Have they liberalised? Not one iota.
Well, of course they're not going to. These things will take hundreds of years.
Well, I don't agree about the hundreds of years because there's things changing all the time. Look at Iran. Iran has got a similar system. There's a movement of women at the moment, almost on the verge of a revolution in Iran. So this idea that it'll take hundreds of years, I just don't. I don't agree with it.
Okay, the point is it can take a long time, but the progress will be made. And of course, I don't agree, and I think most fans don't agree that annexing that country and shaming them helps anybody. I think working in collaboration, rising tide raises all ships, a lot of people would say.
Yeah, but the point is it's a dictatorship who are defending their position, their wealth and their power. The reason why they're putting women like Salma al-Shabaab, 34 years in prison for sending a mild tweet, retweeting, or Nora al-Qatani, 45 years, a mother of 5. Imagine if your mother...
I'm not disagreeing with it. I'm appalled by it. Don't get us wrong. Yeah. I'm just saying, working in collaboration is the best way, I believe, and most people believe, to raise standards for all concerned.
But how can you work in collaboration with dictators, people who are prepared to execute minors, who are prepared to put in prison people, women for 34 and 45 years? What are we going to convince them of?
When cultures, we're not whiter than white, We invaded Iraq for no good reason, and plunged their civilization into the Stone Age. So we're no better in a lot of respects, but we need to rub shoulders with countries like this so that we can all benefit.
But I think that's just a bit of a cliche, rub shoulders with the country. No. The people who are at the club, the owners of the club, are the elite. It's the royal family. It's their hangers-on. It's the people that they put in power. It's not these young guys who are. A lot of these guys are probably football fans as well. So we've got more in common as working-class Geordies with the victims of Saudi Arabia, not with the royal family and not with the dictatorship that owns our club. That's who we're addressing to. And I just want I want to say about this. We are here to say these 8 young guys were asked specifically by Saudi activists to say their names, and they said I wasn't sure about it. And they said to us, I said, is it all right to say the names? They said the only language that MBS understands is bad publicity. And if it'll get back to Saudi Arabia, that these guys have got people standing up for them and saying the names. And I'll leave you at this point as well. I thought we were going to engage with the Saudis. Engaging means telling the truth to them, okay? And saying, why don't we go? Why doesn't the fans groups? Why doesn't WOR FLAGS organise a display in support of these young lads? That would be fantastic. Why doesn't Amanda Savory? And I totally agree. It's great to have the women's team. Embracing United with pride. Okay.
Supported by Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, but isn't that a massive contradiction though?
Of course it is.
It's an enormous contradiction. So if
it shows that there's something to work on.
No, but you have to actually say something as well. So why don't the fans groups, some of the fans groups, which are engaging with the ownership?
Anyway, John, you're obviously very passionate about this, and thanks for taking some time to explain your views. Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much.